Welcome back. Tonight, we're diving into the darkness of thunderstorms and the horrors they bring. There's a primal fear in the way thunder splits the sky and rattles your home, a reminder of how small we are against nature's fury. But sometimes, the terror outside is matched by what lurks within. The stories you'll hear are allegedly true, sent in by viewers, and all took place under the cover of a raging storm. These aren't just tales of noise and flickering lights. They're about isolation, strange visitors, and things revealed in the brief, terrifying flashes of lightning. So turn down the lights, put on your headphones, and listen closely. Because sometimes the storm isn't just outside your window, it's trying to get in. Tonight, we delve into the realm of the unexplained, where the forces of nature intertwine with the unsettling mysteries of the human experience. Our first story comes from Mark, who grew up in rural Oklahoma, a place where the skies are vast and unforgiving, and where tornadoes weren't just a possibility, but a way of life. They were a part of the landscape, a constant threat looming on the horizon. His family's storm shelter, a concrete bunker dug deep into the earth, was supposed to be a safe haven, a sanctuary from the destructive power of the storms that frequently swept through the region. It was a place of refuge, a symbol of security in a world of uncertainty. But that sense of security was shattered one night, when Mark was just 12 years old. A night that would forever be etched in his memory. A night that would challenge his understanding of the world. As a particularly violent storm raged outside, unleashing its fury upon the land, his family huddled together inside the cramped, damp shelter. The air was thick with anticipation and fear, each member bracing themselves against the unknown. The world above was reduced to muffled thunder, the howling wind, and the incessant drumming of rain. The only source of light was the weak, flickering glow of a gas lantern, casting long, dancing shadows on the concrete walls. Suddenly, cutting through the cacophony of the storm, a rhythmic, deliberate banging echoed from the heavy steel door. It was a sound that sent shivers down their spines, a sound that spoke of something unnatural. Then, a man's voice, strained with desperation and pleading, pierced the darkness, begging to be let in. "Please, please, you have to let me in. The storm's tearing everything apart out here. I need shelter." Mark's father hesitated, his brow furrowed in concern. No one lived nearby. Their closest neighbors were miles away. Who could possibly be out there, alone and vulnerable, in the midst of this raging chaos? The question hung heavy in the air, unanswered and unsettling. The voice grew more insistent, more frantic, and then disturbingly angry. "Open the door! I know you're in there! Don't pretend you can't hear me!" The pounding escalated, becoming violent and desperate, shaking the entire shelter with each blow. The metal door groaned under the assault, threatening to buckle. Mark's father, his face grim, gripped a heavy tire iron, his knuckles white. He stood ready to defend his family, prepared for whatever might come next. The family was frozen in terror, their eyes wide with fear, as the man outside screamed and battered the door with increasing ferocity. The lantern light flickered wildly, casting grotesque shadows that danced on the walls, amplifying their fear. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the noise stopped. The pounding ceased, the screaming faded away, leaving an unnerving silence in its wake. Only the relentless storm remained, its fury unabated, a constant reminder of the chaos that reigned outside. They waited in silence, huddled together, afraid to move, afraid to breathe. The tension in the small shelter was palpable, thick with unspoken fear and uncertainty. When the storm finally passed, its fury spent, Mark's father cautiously opened the heavy steel door, bracing himself for what he might find. But there was no one outside. No footprints in the mud, no sign of a car, nothing but battered earth and the lingering scent of rain. The landscape was desolate, scarred by the storm's passage. It was as if the desperate visitor had simply vanished into thin air, swallowed by the storm as quickly as he had appeared. Mark never forgot that terrifying night, or the chilling realization that sometimes the most dangerous thing during a storm isn't the howling wind, the torrential rain, or the destructive force of nature itself. It's the unseen, the unknown, the malevolent presence that tries to get in, seeking refuge in the chaos. The family never spoke of the incident again, burying the memory deep within their hearts, but the chilling encounter haunted them for years to come, a constant reminder of the night their safe haven was threatened. Who or what had come knocking on their door that night, seeking entry into their sanctuary? Was it a desperate traveler or something far more sinister? The storm had conveniently covered its approach, masking its true nature, and then, just as conveniently, it covered its disappearance, leaving no trace behind. Sometimes the apparent chaos and destruction outside is just a carefully constructed mask, a distraction designed to conceal something far more sinister lurking beneath the surface. And sometimes, the storm brings with it more than just wind, rain, and thunder. It brings a chilling reminder that the world is full of mysteries, and that some doors are best left unopened. Tonight, we delve into the unsettling. This next account comes from Clara, a woman whose life took a chilling turn during a stormy night. Clara, a solitary soul, lived alone in a quaint, secluded house nestled at the edge of a dense forest. Her days were filled with quiet routines, and her nights were usually peaceful, punctuated only by the sounds of nature. She found solace in her isolation, a sense of calm that only the deep woods could provide. She loved watching storms roll in, mesmerized by the raw power of nature's fury, the booming thunder, the blinding flashes, the relentless rain. She found a strange beauty in the chaos, until one night changed everything, forever altering her perception of the world around her. As lightning flashed, illuminating the forest in stark, momentary brilliance, she saw a tall, thin silhouette at the edge of the woods. It was perfectly still, unnervingly so, facing her house with an unwavering gaze. The figure seemed to absorb the darkness around it, a stark contrast to the vibrant flashes of light. She tried to dismiss it as a trick of the light, a fleeting shadow playing games with her eyes, but a growing unease settled in her stomach. Each flash brought the figure closer, more defined, more real. First at the tree line, a dark sentinel guarding the edge of the woods, then on her lawn, the rain doing nothing to wash away the dread that was now consuming her. Then at the bottom of her porch steps, a silent invader encroaching upon her sanctuary. The man was unnaturally tall, impossibly gaunt, and disturbingly faceless, a creature born of shadow and storm, a dark void where his features should be, a blank canvas of nothingness that amplified the terror he inspired. It was as if the storm itself had taken human form, a manifestation of all her deepest fears. Clara locked her doors, fumbling with the deadbolt, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird, and hid in her bedroom, the only sanctuary she could think of, peering through the curtains, listening to the relentless storm and dreading the next flash of lightning that might reveal him even closer. With every burst of lightning, she imagined him moving closer, his long skeletal fingers reaching for her door, his faceless gaze boring into her soul. The silence between thunderclaps was suffocating, a heavy blanket of dread that amplified every creak of the house, every rustle of leaves, filled with the paralyzing fear of what she might see next. As the storm faded, its fury gradually subsiding, so did the sense of immediate danger, the oppressive weight on her chest slowly lifting. But the fear, the chilling memory of the figure, lingered like a phantom limb. In the morning, the sun rose on a scene of serene normalcy. There were no footprints in the mud, no sign that anyone or anything had been there. The storm had washed away all traces of its visitor. The lightning man had vanished with the storm, disappearing as quickly and mysteriously as he had arrived, leaving Clara forever changed, forever haunted by the image of his faceless form. She never felt safe in storms again. The comforting rhythm of the rain, the dramatic spectacle of lightning, were now tainted by the memory of that silent, approaching figure, forever etched into her mind. The solitude she once cherished, the peaceful isolation she had sought in the woods, now felt like a dangerous vulnerability, a constant invitation to the darkness. She wondered if he was waiting, lurking just beyond the trees, for the next storm to return, for the next flash of lightning to guide him back. Sometimes the storm reveals things that shouldn't be seen, secrets best left buried in the darkness. And sometimes it brings them closer with every flash of light, drawing them out of the shadows and into our lives. Clara's peaceful cottage was never the same. The storm had shown her what hides in the darkness, the things that lurk just beyond the edge of our perception, if only for a moment, a fleeting glimpse into the abyss. And she would never forget the face she never saw, the terrifying emptiness that stared back at her from the heart of the storm. Beware what the lightning reveals, for some things are better left unseen. Our final story tonight comes from someone, a listener just like you, who shared a chilling experience from their childhood. These are the stories that linger, the ones that burrow under your skin and remind you that some doors are best left unopened, some questions unanswered. It's a tale of a childhood night, a night etched in their memory, a night that forever changed their perception of home. A night when a storm, a raging tempest of wind and rain, brought more than just a temporary inconvenience. It brought something else, something sinister, something that defied explanation. Their old house, a place that should have been a sanctuary, held a secret. It had a basement they actively avoided, damp, cold, and unwelcoming. It was shadowy, a place where darkness clung to the corners, and deeply unsettling, a space that always felt like it was watching you. Even in the brightest of days, a sense of unease permeated the air down there. During a particularly fierce thunderstorm, one that seemed to shake the very foundations of the house, the power went out, plunging them into darkness. The family, seeking comfort and reassurance, gathered upstairs by the flickering light of candles, their shadows dancing on the walls, amplifying the feeling of vulnerability. It was then, amidst the howling wind and crashing thunder, that they heard it, a faint, rhythmic tapping emanating from below. It wasn't the sound of the storm, not the wind rattling the windows, or a branch scraping against the siding. This was different. It was distinct, deliberate, and undeniably coming from the basement. Their father, ever the protector, grabbed a flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness, and bravely went to investigate the source of the unsettling sound. As he descended the creaking wooden stairs, each step echoing in the oppressive silence, the tapping abruptly stopped. Minutes stretched into an eternity, filled only with the sound of the storm outside. He didn't return, and the silence from the basement was more terrifying than any noise. Their mother, her worry escalating into fear, called out to him, her voice trembling, but there was no answer. Driven by a mother's instinct, she grabbed another flashlight, its beam shaking in her hand, and cautiously peered down the stairs. What she saw in the darkness caused her to gasp, a sharp intake of breath that echoed in the stairwell. She stumbled back, her face pale with terror. In a moment of pure, unadulterated fear, she slammed the basement door shut and locked it, the rusty bolts scraping against the metal, a sound that would haunt their dreams for years to come. She refused to speak of what she'd seen. The image burned into her mind. The family huddled together, their faces illuminated by the flickering candlelight, their hearts pounding in their chests. They were utterly terrified, trapped in their own home as the storm raged outside, and their father remained missing, swallowed by the darkness below. When the police finally arrived the next morning, the storm having subsided, they cautiously entered the basement. It was empty, eerily, disturbingly empty. There was no sign of their father, no indication of a struggle, no evidence of a break-in. It was as if he had simply vanished. The only clue, the only unsettling detail that hinted at something beyond explanation, were the deep gouges etched on the inside of a small, grimy window. The marks were raw and desperate, suggesting something. Some had been trying to claw its way out, desperate to escape the confines of the basement. Years later, long after the house had been sold and the family had moved away, their mother finally revealed the horrifying truth of what she saw that night. She described a pale, gaunt figure lurking in the darkest corner of the basement, a figure that seemed to absorb the light around it. It was there, in the oppressive darkness, that she saw it rhythmically tapping a long, bony finger on the damp concrete floor, the sound echoing in the silence. When the beam of her flashlight finally landed on it, the figure slowly looked up. But there was no face, no eyes, no nose, no mouth, just blank, pale skin stretched over bone. She slammed the door shut, the image forever seared into her memory, and never spoke of the creature again, burying the trauma deep within her soul. The official story, the one they told the neighbors and the police, was that their father had simply left, abandoning his family. But the family knew better. They knew the truth, the unspoken horror that haunted their lives. The storm hadn't just brought a fallen branch or a loose pipe. It had brought something far more sinister, something that had crawled up from the dark, damp corners of their home, something that had been lurking in the shadows, waiting for its opportunity. The tapping wasn't just a random noise. It was its announcement, its way of announcing its presence, its claim on their home. And the storm, with its chaos and darkness, was its perfect cover, masking its arrival and concealing its deeds. Some things, once invited in by the chaos, once allowed to cross the threshold, never truly leave. They linger in the shadows, feeding on fear and uncertainty, forever bound to the place where they first made their presence known. And some storms, some nights, bring more than just rain. They bring something else, something far more terrifying, something that will haunt your dreams long after the thunder has faded away. The storm has passed, but the silence that follows can be even more unsettling. These stories remind us that when the sky grows dark, the chaos outside can mask something far more sinister. Thank you for joining me tonight. If you have your own storm story, share it in the comments. Like and subscribe for more true horror. As you go about your night, listen to the sounds around you. And next time a thunderstorm rolls in, pay attention to the shadows. Sometimes, the scariest things happen when the storm is at its loudest.